Hi, how are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. The RSC Article 1 Task Force is leading efforts to restore Congress's constitutional authority as the legislative branch responsible for passing laws in this country. One of Congress's authorities is the constitutional responsibility for overseeing the governance of the District of Columbia. For years now, the D.C. City Council has not only prioritized left-wing policies and programs, but intentionally sought to hide their activities from Congress. It is a new day in D.C., however, and Congress intends to once again assert its authority to ensure that Washington, D.C. rightfully reflects and represents this great nation on the national and international stage. President Trump's unyielding leadership and strength, coupled with proper congressional oversight, ensures that Washington, D.C. will reclaim its rightful place as the shining symbol of American strength and dignity. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution states that the seat of government doctrine grants Congress plenary legislative authority over the District of Columbia as the federal capital. The Founding Fathers wanted the nation's capital to be free from disproportionate influence of any single state and the influence of states generally. In 1973, Congress granted D.C. limited home rule authority through the District of Columbia Self-Government Reorganization Act, also called the Home Rule Act. In the Home Rule Act, Congress reserves the right at any time to exercise its constitutional authority as legislature for the district, which it includes the right to review and block local legislation before it takes effect. It has now become necessary for Congress to exercise such authority. Why? Because the D.C. City Council is seeking to exercise its authority not for the best interests of its citizens or the broader community, but for political purposes. Today, the political City Council is using special legislation not for emergencies, but in response to the Trump administration's effort to bring law and order to D.C. and to circumvent Congress's authority. For example, in March, the City Council enacted a temporary law codifying Chevron deference in D.C. in the city courts in an effort to avoid the effects of the United States Supreme Court's decision in Loper-Bright. I filed H.R. 3766 to repeal the special law and prohibit such future laws. Another example, 1 month after President Trump signed his EO making the District of Columbia safe and beautiful, the City Council implemented a temporary law to amend the open meeting requirements to allow it to meet in secret. The City Councilmen during the hearing indicated that they wanted to meet in secret in response to congressional and presidential oversight of their failed city policies. In response, Senator Lee and I introduced two bills, one to exercise congressional disapproval and block this law, and also one to create an expedited period of congressional review over special legislation. Section 740, the Emergency Control of Police in the D.C. Home Rule Act, grants the President of the United States the ability to mobilize the Metropolitan Police Force when it's determined that special conditions of an emergency nature exist for federal purposes for a period not to exceed 30 days unless further extended by Congress. President Trump has lawfully exercised this law. On August 11th, President Trump issued a memorandum directing the Secretary of Defense to mobilize the D.C. National Guard. While governors control their state guards, the D.C. mayor does not control the D.C. Guard, which is under the control of the president. D.C. has seen major improvements in the incidence of crime in the last 3 weeks with the help of federal intervention. Homicide rates are down by 38%. Robbery is down by 62%. The total violent crime is down 45%, and carjackings are down 78%. Other governors and mayors should look at these improvements and welcome support from the government to keep their citizens safe. It is up to the governor of each state to decide if deployment of their National Guard is needed to help decrease violence and prioritize safety. It is important to note that ICE and other federal law enforcement has jurisdiction over illegal alien crimes everywhere in this country, and those governors and mayors do not have the legal right to declare their jurisdictions to be sanctuaries from federal law. I'm Harriet Hageman. I represent the great state of Wyoming. I am the chairman of the Article 1 Task Force, and I now turn it over to Chairman Pfluger of the RSC.